Welcome to your 12-minute HR lesson. Today we're going to talk about fish. We're going to talk about how fish get out of water. We're going to talk about when a fish lands in a new pond, it's got to learn its new environment, and how sometimes it gets it wrong. And sometimes it's our job to fix that. And sometimes one of those fixes is a letter of expectations. Why are you writing to fish? Well, let's talk about that. Let's go. Let's talk about fish out of water. A fish out of water trope is essentially a situation where the writer puts someone in a different situation in which their lack of knowledge on the situation provides us learning or provides us with comedy or both. There's so many different situations of fish out of water. The absolute perfect archetype, but not many people have seen it, is Coneheads, which is a Saturday night spin-off in the 1980s. Wasn't very popular, but essentially Dan Aykroyd and Jane Curtis are aliens with cones on their head who are extremely literal, and no one pays attention to the fact that they're clearly and obviously alien. They just think they're from not around here. Mostly we see this in comedies. We see this in drama as well. We see this in so many different situations in which the main protagonist, who is our audience surrogate, is confused and unaware and learning of these new situations in which we go, yeah, what would we do? What would we learn? But also provides us with comedy as they comedically don't understand what's in front of them. Dances with Wolves is a good example of a dramatic fish out of water, and Elf is a good example of a comedic fish out of water that you can't go past as a pure fish out of water, turning up and shining a mirror upon the values of the people that he is pretending not to know. If you want the absolute gold standard of that, you can't go past Borat. Borat turning up as a fake, extremely prejudiced person, but harmless person, and seeing to what extent people will agree with him is such an interesting comedic fish out of water situation. Why do we like this so much? Why is it so interesting? Why, if there's, of all the tropes and stories in movies and TV and what have you, TV's quite interesting because you can only do it for series 1, but you can get by in series 1 with a fish out of water situation. Why do we find it so interesting? Why do we find it so educational? It's because we do this all the time. We have our scenarios that we are familiar with. We have our scenarios that we're not familiar with. There's a premise I want you to think about. That is, all play is preparatory. All entertainment is preparatory. At the heart of everything we do for entertainment, there is the idea that we are doing this because we might need to do it at some stage later. At the heart of Downton Abbey is you subconsciously worrying, what if I got teleported back to Victorian era and I had to behave like these people? I know that's a ridiculous premise, so park it. We go into new environments all the time, and we need to learn whether or not this is a new workplace, whether or not it's a new family, whether or not it's a new social circumstance from which you're going to meet a bunch of people that you don't know what the norms are like. Every time you go overseas, you have these questions. These are things that we are perpetually wondering about and worrying about and having to actually do. Everybody does this in every workplace when they start. Think back to when you started your current job or a previous job. You walked in there tentatively with an open mind, asking the question, what is it like around here? What do they do? What are the people like? How do they talk? How do they not? What's acceptable? What's not? One of these days I'm going to do an episode on Damo Force 10, but that's it for another day. The premise here is that we are adjusters to new cultural environments. We are really good at it, some more so than others. But every so often, someone either gets it wrong, someone goes beyond the rules, thinking or hoping that that's okay, or sometimes the rules have quietly changed on someone. And it's this premise of not knowing what is normal around here, or misjudging what is normal around here, or missing the lesson or missing the cues. That is why we give letters of expectations.
Let me quickly interrupt this to talk about ourselves, to talk about Pragmatic HRM. Pragmatic HRM is primarily an HR education service. It's primarily an HR educator. These podcasts are essentially tasters, teasers, examples of the type of upskilling that we can give you, how we can get you to think, to reevaluate, to look at what you do and how you deal with situations critically, to see how you can find new ways, areas of improvement, differences in perspectives and understanding that means that you make smarter, wiser decisions next time. Primarily, we do this via webinars. Most of our training is through our webinars. You can access our webinars in one of two ways. You can join an online live class along with a bunch of other people in which we talk about the ideas and talk about the learnings together. Alternatively, if that doesn't suit you, if the times aren't right, if they're too far away, you can access our webinars on demand. These are at your convenience and at a cheaper price. If you do all four in a series, you get a free hour one-on-one training session just to help put these things together. You can find all of our training courses at pragmatichrm.nz.
So let's talk about letters of expectations. I hadn't written a letter of expectation until about 10 years ago. Now I feel like I'm writing them all the time. They're just one of these new tools that you start to see around, that as cultures and practice change and emerge, we start to develop slightly different ways of doing things. And a letter of expectation is a new and a useful tool, and I would encourage you to use them. But let's talk about what you're actually doing and when you should use them and when you shouldn't. At its heart, a letter of expectation is saying to someone, hey, you missed the memo on this one. You missed the social cue. No one ever told you this. You should have picked up on this. We don't document every little thing. A conversation you might have had, you've probably had. If you haven't had it explicitly, you've had it implicitly. That is, no one ever told me that. No one ever told me I had to do this. No one ever told me we don't do this. And to some extent, that's true. But on the other hand, the defense is we shouldn't have to tell you that. Now, that feels like a lame defense, but it is true. We don't document every little thing of what's normal around here. We don't document this is where you should sit, this is who you should talk to, this is how you should smile, this is how you should ask nicely, this is how you should communicate. We hire them because they are experienced professionals, not inexperienced children. Part of the deal is that they are smart enough to learn without us having to teach them explicitly every little thing. But sometimes we are distance apart on that one. Sometimes someone isn't doing something and they didn't know that they should be acting that way. That is when we say, okay, we'll give you the benefit of the doubt that you didn't know, but now you know. So what is a letter of expectations? Essentially, let me rattle through what you're doing and how you do it. You are sitting down with a person who you are unhappy with the decisions that they're making, you're unhappy with the behavior that they're doing, but you accept that their decisions and their behavior is based on genuine misunderstandings of what is a reasonable thing to do. They think in the moment what they're doing is fine. Or they are claiming, I didn't know better, and you say, well, that's an understandable thing. But here's our expectations. Let's talk it through. You think this. We are now saying, no, you can't be doing that. You need to be doing this. So next time, do this. We're giving you the benefit of the doubt that you can't read our mind, that you didn't know these things, that you missed the pickup, that you missed the cues, but now you know. And here's our expectation. Next time, your decisions and your behavior need to look like this, and ignorance will not be an excuse next time round. So what is a letter of expectations? It's sitting down with someone, following it up with this letter. You never want to just send a letter. You want to have a conversation. You need to talk it through with them, in which you say, hey, look, raising your voice like that, that's not acceptable. Lifting your finger like that, that's not acceptable. That joke's not good enough in that environment. You prioritizing this over that, no, that's not what we want. We understand that you thought in the moment what you were doing was okay. So benefit it out. We're not going to punish you for what you did, but we need you to understand what you should have done, and you will make a different decision next time. We accept that you were a fish out of water. We accept that the water changed on you, and there's plenty of people out there who are used to doing things and talking things and acting in a certain way that was fine 30 years ago, but not now. We accept that you didn't think it was a problem. You didn't do this on purpose. But now you know, and next time you do that, it will be on purpose. So this has been one of my more practical lessons, but it's still trying to capture what I'm trying to do here, which is give you deeper understandings, not just what to do, but why we do it. Because if you don't understand why and what the outcome you're trying to achieve, you can easily get that wrong. You can easily just be sending off letters going, these are the things you've done wrong. If you don't understand the fundamentals, which is, yeah, no, we get that you didn't know that. Now you know it, then you might just miss the mark on this one. Anyway, thank you for listening. Remember, pragmatichrm.nz, all of our courses, all of our services, all of the things that we can do to help you. If you're not interested, we don't mind. It's not a problem. All we ask is shares, likes, reposts, spreading us around, giving others the opportunity to think slightly differently about what they do in their day-to-day. Otherwise, I'll catch you next time.